And we'll go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Policy Committee on Wednesday, September 10th. And we'll start with the approval of the minutes. Councilmember Jurinsky, are you good with the minutes?
I am. I approve.
Great. And Councilmember Gardner? It's not here. I also approve. So we'll go ahead and approve those minutes. And we'll start with our first item, which is the UDO amendment for the landmark design, I guess a text change. And is that Chris, I think?
Yes, I'm here. This is my first time doing this this committee,
Okay.
so I apologize. And it's still a little early for me. Can I just share my PowerPoint presentation, or
Yes,
does somebody else run it for me?
Unless Crystal's running it.
Because I've got it up. I'm ready to run it.
Yeah, go ahead and share.
Okay. Can you all see the presentation?
We can. It's not in slide mode, but we can. Yep, there we go. Perfect.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me this morning. I've already presented to Planning and Zoning, and this is kind of an administrative issue. And so I'm just here to request, there is in the current UDO, a provision that when a property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, that it is automatically listed as a local landmark here in the city. And we need to separate those two processes. There we go. Just a little background. The city of Aurora has been a certified local government, or what we call a CLG, since 1988. So we're closing in on 40 years. We have been able to do many things because of this certification. There is a separate pool of money, grant money, that is provided only to certified local governments. And so we've been able to do survey work in Hoffman Heights. We've been able to do survey plans, and we're currently doing a survey plan update that is a $25,000 grant that came from a CLG process. We get guidance from the State Historic Preservation Office. We get access to webinars and educational trainings. Our local landmarks that already have gone through that process qualify for state tax credits through being a CLG. So there are a lot of benefits for us to have that. The dissolution or the disconnection of local landmark and National Register has really been requested off and on by different CLG coordinators for over 20 years. But it was specifically called out in our 2021 quadrennial review. And we are rapidly approaching our 2025 quadrennial review. It is set for October 14th. And it would be fantastic to be able to say that we are at the tail end of that process. And really what this is about is due process and being transparent and inclusive. So when something is listed on the National Register and automatically gives them local landmark designation, it doesn't allow the property owner to be involved in the public process. So there's no hearing at the local level where they can say, hey, I don't want this. I feel like there are going to be restrictions, or I'm not going to be able to do this or that. And so, it doesn't involve them in that process. Every community is different in how they do their local landmark process. And so, this could subject them to regulations that they're completely unaware of. And so we want to be more transparent about the process. We want to involve them. And so keeping the local landmark process separate allows for them to participate in that process. It also allows City Council to participate in that process. And so we don't want to exclude the property owner. We would prefer to include them in the process. And so, like I said, we've already gone to Planning and Zoning, and they unanimously supported it. Moving forward, this is just a screenshot of the text in conjunction with the legal team to make sure that it is appropriately worded. Anything prior to January 1st of 2026 they would be grandfathered in. So we would just leave those as both National Register designated properties and locally landmarked properties. But anything moving forward, we would totally separate that process. So we've been working with planning on this. As I mentioned, we met with planning and zoning. They appreciated the transparency of the process, and so recommended moving this forward, presenting to you today. We would go to, we have our quadrennial review at our Historic Preservation Commission meeting. And, there is kind of this urgency because of that upcoming review. Also, we could lose our CLG status if we're not complying with both, the state process as well as the federal process. This is slated to go to study session on the 22nd, and then there would be 2 readings by council before it would be official. And so, this is just showing you the 2021 quadrennial review paperwork. We've already dealt with the first issue they requested, which was returning the state tax credit review back over to the state tax credit reviewer. This is the last thing that we need to comply with. And so that is it for me, and I can answer any questions if folks have it.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Do we have any questions from our committee members?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Chris, for the presentation. I saw this unfold last night when I saw you at the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. So it's very good to have the landowners involved in the property in these discussions because it really can change what you can and cannot do with your property. So thank you for the presentation, and I fully support this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jurinsky.
And I also think it's a really good thing for property owners because I know it has implications for them. So thank you, and we'll go ahead and move it forward. I was going to say, if it is that timely, Laura, she could probably, instead of having it study session and then on the next council meeting, she could dual list it, couldn't she?
Or Chair Bergan, if you're comfortable, we can go directly to the floor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
First reading and
comfortable.
skip study session. Okay.
Councilmember Jurinsky?
Totally comfortable with that.
Okay. Great. Will do. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Chris. Next is the Highway 30 landfill remediation update. Jeffrey Moore.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bergan and council members. Appreciate the time. Jeffrey Moore, manager of the city's Energy and Environment Division. Let me share my slides here and we'll get started. Today's presentation is information only, so not looking for any decision on this. This is just for information. All right. So what's the big picture here we're going to talk about? Aurora owns an old landfill. We call it the Highway 30 landfill. It was closed in 1975, so 50 years ago. There is some contamination that's originating from that landfill, and CDPHE requires us to clean up the contamination. The investigation phase for that work is complete, and we are preparing a public comment period in October on the remediation plans. And so we wanted to bring this to you for information today. Also, good news, we've received a grant in March to begin the work, and we've applied for an extension for next year. And I'm pleased to say that since these slides were created just in the last week, that additional grant has been approved. So we'll talk about that in just a couple of slides here. A little background on the actual landfill itself, history, and the work we've done to understand the contamination. So this landfill is in Ward 2. It's kind of sandwiched in between E470 and State Highway 30. Buckley Space Force Base is directly to the west. Murphy Creek and Murphy Creek neighborhood are directly to the east. The site is owned by the city. It's currently being used by a couple city departments for surface use. Public Works, Rural Water, and PROS are all using this for storage of various materials, landscaping materials, soil, ground up road base, and things like that. There's also a decant bay that's being constructed by Aurora Water at the southern end of the facility, and that is they will take storm drain materials when they clean out storm drains and clean out detention ponds. They'll place them in this concrete decant bay to let evaporation occur, and then dispose of just the solids rather than having to pay for disposal of solids and liquids. To wrap this into the historical, there are two waste trenches on the property. You can see them there, the west trench and the east trench. They're along the boundaries of the property. And this is where the trash was placed historically and is now covered, of course. A little bit more history. Did operate as a municipal solid waste landfill in the early 70s. It was closed in 75. For many decades after that, we did the required annual monitoring, post-closure monitoring that was required. In 2016, CDPHE issued a compliance advisory letting us know that based on some of the samples, they were seeing some contamination that we needed to investigate. We did work with them to do that investigation. In late 2019, they issued a final compliance order on consent, which does legally require us to clean up the groundwater and the soil in a couple of spots there that are coming from the landfill. So for the last 6 years, we've been working to complete that investigation. We'll talk about some of those details next. We have submitted our Assessment of Corrective Measures report, the ACMR, last December. We got comments from CDPHE back in the spring. We've been working to address those, which were done this summer, and now we're ready to move forward to a public comment period. So in the investigation phase, we confirmed the locations of the two trenches where the solid waste trash was placed historically. We drilled over 100 monitoring points, water monitoring wells, soil vapor wells, points, and then some other borings to delineate exactly where the trenches are located. I will say that these are fairly shallow. They're tens of feet deep, 25, 30 feet deep below the surface is the deepest part of the trench. And then, of course, we completed our ACMR. Now, that's coming to cost. We have spent about $2.5 million in the last 10 years, about $250,000 a year. That comes from the city's capital projects fund to do this investigation to understand what's the extent of the contamination and what are the ideas for fixing it. That also includes some funds that we use to install a passive methane venting system. If you drive along Highway 30 out there, you'll see some PVC pipes sticking out of the ground with whirlybirds on the top, and that's just allowing the methane to escape as it's generated in the landfill. Few technical results here on this slide. The contours that you see are the groundwater levels. You can see in the blue the groundwater flow directions, and then you can see some large polygons of what we call bedrock areas. Those are solid rock, essentially, once you get down below the surface soil and the waste trenches. There's no water flow in those areas. Putting all that together, then, we've identified that there are 3 areas where the waste that's in the trench, the trash that's there, has been saturated with groundwater. Again, this is shallow groundwater. This is not the aquifers that the city owns. This is shallow groundwater, tens of feet deep. In addition to that, we've confirmed which contaminants must be remediated based on CDPHE guidance and state levels. 2 examples of types of contamination. On the left is a map showing concentrations of a chemical called 1,4-dioxane. That's an industrial solvent. You can see the colored intervals there. They're on the west waste trench, essentially coming from a single point, more or less, in the trench, but also then coming out of the trench because of the groundwater flow. On the right is TCE, trichloroethane. That's a dry cleaning chemical, and that is mostly in the east waste trench. You can see 2 areas there where that material is originating from. All right, so we've put all this together. We've had our consultants, Quantum Water and Environment, as well as some subcontractors working on putting all this information together to create the ACMR. And then really the key is to decide what needs to be done to fix the problem. We've got several different ideas that we're working on and proposing as part of the ACMR. The first is regrading over the waste areas. So this hasn't been done for several decades. And what happens is over time, as the trash continues to compact and deteriorate, the top of the trenches kind of begin to settle in. So there's a little bit of a concave shape to that, and water, rainwater, snowmelt can collect there rather than running off. So we want to regrade those trenches so that we don't have water, percolating down through the trench and making the situation worse. The second idea is what we call the permeable reactive barrier, or PRB. This is going to be in 2 locations, one on the east trench and one on the north end. This is a series of very shallow, closely spaced injections where we will inject a material into the ground, and that will help to capture and neutralize the contaminants as they flow into that and through that, so that we don't get any contamination further off site. We also have our soil vapor extraction system. We're going to connect those PVC vents together into a blower or vacuum and then to a combustor, so that that methane is eliminated and no longer vented to the atmosphere. Now, I'll talk more about the grant in just a minute, but the good news is all of these things that I've just talked about, these 3 systems, we have grant funds to do this work. This year, we're already starting that this year, and then next year. So that's really, really good news. Once we do these things, we will enter into a period of monitoring to determine the effectiveness of these particular ideas and implementations in the field. If necessary, we will have to do some excavation of saturated waste in the future. Now, we prefer not to do that because that's the most expensive part of the whole proposal, but it is an option that we may have to do on a limited basis in the future if the first concepts don't prove to fully eliminate the contamination. If we have to do all of these, including the excavation of saturated waste and disposal and backfill, the total estimated cost would be about $35.5 million. Now, the good news is we have already received $7.9 million in a grant from the state. We've actually got an additional grant, which I'll discuss in a minute. In terms of timeline, the initial work is already starting now, but this is a long project, right? This is going to be decades. We're going to be doing the work. We're going to be monitoring to see the effectiveness of the work that we do, and then making adjustments in the future. All right, I've mentioned the grant a couple of times. Let me talk more about that. So this is a grant that was established by the Colorado House in 2023, House Bill 23-1191-94. It provides funds for local governments that own and must remediate a closed landfill, which is exactly the situation that we're in. The legislature provided $15 million to open the grant program. It does not apply to active landfills. This is only closed landfills. The grant is reimbursement. We have to spend the funds, and then we get reimbursed on a monthly basis. We're already doing that. It's working very smoothly. The cycle is based on the state fiscal year, which begins July 1st. So it's offset from the city fiscal year. So we've worked closely with the budget office to make sure that we had the appropriate budgeting and everything in the city budget. The first application for this program was just last summer. We applied along with 3 other entities. There were a total of 4 landfills within those 3 entities that were applied for. We received by far the largest grant, which was $7.9 million. We signed that contract in March of this year, and we've already begun the initial work under that grant program. Even though the ACMR is not finalized in the process yet, we're working very closely with CDPHE. They're fully aware of everything that we're doing. They support the work that we're doing. The grant program is available, and we wanted to maximize the use of grant funds first before we spend any city dollars on this. We've already received $81,000 reimbursed. That's through June, and then we'll have more reimbursements coming every month this year. As I said here in this bullet, we've applied for the grant cycle number 3 for an additional $3.5 million. I'm very pleased to say that last September 2nd, we went to the advisory committee. They approved it, and CDPHE approved it just this week, Monday. So that amount is approved as well. So that brings us up to $11.4 million that we've received in grant funds over the next year and a half. And that's out of the original $15 million. So we've received by far the most of any other entity for this program, and we're really pleased with that. All right, in summary, so we are required to do this work under CDPHE's orders. They've approved our assessment of corrective measures report that details all the nature and extent of the contamination and the best options for remediation. They will run a 45-day public comment period for us. They're going to post in the Sentinel on the 25th, receive comments through November 9th. And then, of course, we'll work with them to respond to any of those comments or add additional clarification if needed in their particular report. We're also working with the communications department for an email to council and a press release that will let the public know of the city's need to do the work, the availability of the public comment period, and the grant funds that the city has received to begin this work, so that we are not using city taxpayer dollars. We've already begun the remediation work. As I said, we are going to maximize the use of grant funds first. We fully understand that the city is in a budget crunch right now for the next few years. So we are maximizing the use of grant funds before we use any other dollars. And then just a reminder again, the remediation work monitoring is going to continue for decades. This is a long-term project. It's not something that'll be finished in months or a year. We're going to take it step by step. We'll do the grant funded work first. We'll do some monitoring to see the effectiveness of that, and then we'll move forward in the future if we need to budget additional funds. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Councilmember Jurinsky.
No questions from me, but thank you for the information.
And I
You're
have
welcome.
one. Obviously, this is what, 40 years old, something like that. I did my math right. So it was closed in 75, and yet it sat there, no concerns for all those 40 years plus years. And then this came about then with the I guess CDPHE. So my question is, they've determined there's some contamination, but how much contamination are they really? I mean, when they just said here, you have to do any landfills that were closed, even did they designate how long they've been closed at all? And then did they have any criteria for how much contamination is coming out of the ground? Because I mean, for that long, you would think it has dissipated. I'm not an engineer, but I mean, is the two chemicals that you mentioned, like, what is the quantity and like, what is the impact on groundwater?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So the timing of the closure of the landfill is not a consideration in the decisions. So anytime a landfill is closed, there is post-closure monitoring that's required. So they will place some monitoring wells, groundwater monitoring wells, in the direction of water flow, so that we can see, what, if there's any concern that's coming from those wells. So it was analysis from water that was taken from those wells beginning in 2016 that showed that the levels were beginning to go up, and we were reaching the point where we were exceeding the state requirements for groundwater levels.
Yeah.
So we were seeing contamination was greater than what the state allows for certain constituents. So that was the beginning of the process where we realized that there was some contamination coming. And then the investigation has helped us to define exactly how much it is, where it is, and then the steps that are proposed to fix the problem.
Okay, but is there any correlation? I mean, how, I've heard Marshall Brown talk about, contaminants before, and some of them have a very high, loss for words, but it can affect people greatly. And is there any way to determine, like, the amount that's coming out? Is it truly there's always contamination in water, but so I guess the amount, the degree is considered something that is dangerous. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
I understand your question. It is not affecting any particular person at this time. So there are groundwater wells to the north, both in the city and in the unincorporated counties, that if nothing were done, they could be impacted in the future. But that's what we're trying to prevent. So we want to make sure that we clean this up, reduce those contaminant levels until they're down to a point of safe, where if they are still in the water, they're still safe, so that we do not have any impact to people.
Okay, and of course, the city of Aurora, we're not on well water, so who would be impacted by any groundwater contamination?
Sure, good question. There are some private wells to the north. I think some of those may have been exempted when they were annexed into the city. I don't have the time frames on those, but possibly decades ago. There are some areas north of the landfill that are not in the city of Aurora. So those are areas in unincorporated counties and some of those landowners do have private wells.
So are they also bound by the same regulations? Or are they going to have to do cleanup?
Well, the state standards apply to all groundwater, that's being used in the state in terms of what is safe. They are not, the individual landowners are not doing individual cleanup because they're not contaminated yet. And second of all, the environmental liability and responsibilities of cities, because we owned the landfill, we operate the landfill, and so it's our contamination, so it's our responsibility to clean up.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Very complicated subject. Okay, we'll move on to our last item, which is the housing UDO analysis update. Brandon.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bergan. Let me go ahead and share my presentation, hopefully. Let's see. Present in Teams. Okay. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Very good. Great. Thank you. So good morning again. My name is Brandon Camerata. I'm the manager for the current planning division here at the city. And I'm also the project manager for the small lots compact housing project. So this is part of our monthly updates. We're not going to ask for direction or decision at the end of this. So this is to update you of where we are and where we're going to be upcoming. So as you know, this is a project focused around single family products and their configurations, single family detached, duplexes, townhomes, and looking to build upon the options that were created back in 2019 with the UDO that have been widely used, and really supporting the market's ability and really desire to use these product types more broadly across the community and see what options exist for that. And in doing so, hopefully be able to allow the market to provide more price points to our citizens in terms of housing options as well. While we're doing this, we will continue to make sure that part of the discussion is the parts of our code that support quality neighborhoods, things like proximity to park space, adequate street networks, proximity to goods and services, and things like that. So that will continue to be part of the discussion. And anytime we're looking at our code, we're always looking to find ways to improve flexibility and predictability and make the code be more straightforward and easy to follow. So all those are part of the plan. So where have we been? We've been at this for about 3 months. We're on schedule of where we expected to be at this point. We've been looking at the engagement part of the project primarily. That includes listening sessions with stakeholders in the development community, as well as city leadership at the council level, planning commission, as well as city management. We also have continued our development roundtables, which we really started back last year with a couple of those tables that kind of pointed us in the direction of this more robust approach to finding solutions. And so we'll have our second roundtable in September here coming up. And all those things have been informing our code audit, which I'll touch on in a moment. So all that engagement, I think we've heard a lot of what we expected to hear, and I think that's a good thing. That's affirming that the direction that we thought we needed to take is largely in play. I think the engagement process has really added some benefit to the code audit to be able to hear in real time how the pieces of code are impacting, supporting, maybe hindering development, in real time. And so that has helped with the code audit to be able to get those firsthand accounts. And so also the engagement process continues to add nuance and color and other opportunities and challenges that we can look at while we're making these proposals. So as we move into council discussions and policy discussions, we will be looking to summarize and present those discussions in the context of these three categories. So really hoping in October, starting in October PED, hoping for an October potential council study session to start having more in-depth conversations and probably get into some policy direction requests from council in October. And when we do so, we'll bring those categories or those topics to you all in these three categories. So greenfield is, as the name would imply, undeveloped land, mostly out east around the E470 corridor, mostly master planned large areas. Infill areas, those are typically going to be in the sub areas A and B, so more along the 225 corridor. And then design standards could apply to both of those areas, but those relate to things that we've talked about, like, for example, architecture of buildings, masonry, things like that, potentially on-site parking. Is there flexibility to look at with the placement of that, with the garage, no garage, those sort of discussions. So those are the categories we're looking to bring forward. And as I said before, we'll continue to provide backup and context to these discussions, making sure y'all understand where kind of the livability principles the city has applied, which I mentioned earlier, relate to these potential directions, and hopefully give you as much information that you need to make those policy directions for us. So that is looking to get on the ground in October as we start asking you more in-depth questions. So October PED, probably a little bit more, probably a lot more than our typical updates. And so with that said, here's kind of our schedule looking forward, starting with today's PED meeting, looking at the October PED and October potential council study session, and then still on track to be adopting, or excuse me, starting to write code here over the fall and winter and be able to be in the adoption process with council. And certainly there'll be opportunities along the way as we continue to get direction from you as we draft these code ordinances. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Brandon. Councilmember Jurinsky?
Nothing from me.
I'm glad to see that we actually have a schedule like this. So it's a little bit more encouraging, I think, for the developers to see that we are looking at hopefully that beginning of the 2026 year to have council approval. So once council approves it, it's the draft language you said in November, December will already be done. So it's ready to go, like once council approves, correct?
Right. So council approval is going through public hearing process and getting, final approval of the ordinance. And we would be anticipating that to occur up through March of next year. And so after that, there's a certain amount of weeks before things take effect, and we'll probably have discussions of when will be the effective date of the ordinance to make sure everybody is clear from a process standpoint and all those sort of things. But shortly thereafter of the adoption is when it would take effect.
Okay, but I guess I was expecting that once it's approved by council, that we would be ready to go. So you're saying there's going to be more steps after we approve it?
No, Chair.
No.
So when you're talking about approving the ordinance in a council hearing and
it's
you go through
effective
first and
30
second
days
reading,
later.
It'll be effective 30 days later or
Yeah.
however you decide at the council
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted clarification on that. Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. And we're moving into miscellaneous areas. I don't see any reports from anyone. So Wendy Mitchell, Jonathan, do you want to introduce your new employee?
Yes, Councilwoman, happy to. So Mike Landis, we're happy to welcome him to Aurora and the Aurora EDC family. He'll get to know you all pretty quickly. But he came from the state, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. He worked there for a little over 5 years. He is a fellow New Englander, which is near and dear to my heart. That's where I'm from. Don't worry, he doesn't love any of the hated sports teams, so you don't have to worry about that. But I got to know Mike through some projects that we worked on together with the state. So he's got a great background in economic development. He knows how the site selection world works, and he has experience in policy. So we're really happy to have him. I'll stop there. Mike, if you want to chime in and say hello, feel free.
Hi, everyone. Council members, thank you for the opportunity. I'm really excited to be working with AEDC and grateful to Wendy and Jonathan for the chance to work with you folks. As Jonathan said, I don't root for the Patriots. I am transitioning to being a Broncos fan.
Yay.
So,
although we're not happy about where they're going, but okay.
Listen, I used to root for the Jets. It can't get worse than that. So, yeah. Anyhow, thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay. Go ahead.
Councilwoman, I just wanted to report on a deal, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Is there time? So this is Project Trailblazer. This is a corporate headquarters deal. There is a press release coming out later today, so stay tuned for that. This is a company we've been working off and on with for the last 3 years. But again, corporate headquarters deal. They wanted a business-friendly city, so Aurora stood out to them, and they need to grow. And as you know, we are all about growth here in Aurora, so they picked the right city. There are 900 employees that they're moving to the new headquarters, and then they plan to double in size in the next 10 years. So pretty aggressive growth, but it's due to their industry, which is based in construction and manufacturing predominantly. Their salaries are incredible. Average salaries are $89,000 a year. So if anyone tells you that there's not a career to be made in the trades, this company will prove you wrong with their salaries. So again, there's a press release coming at noon, so we can't announce the company just yet, but we're very excited to welcome them to Aurora, and there'll be more news coming on it.
That is exciting. I'm so happy to hear that we're getting corporate headquarters and all about the trades. So I think this is, really good for the city of Aurora, and can't wait to hear the press release so we can welcome them into our city.
All right. Thank you. No other news to report.
Do you want any other? No? Okay. Any other organizations that typically report that have any pressing announcement? Okay, seeing none. Everyone have a great day. Thank you for attending the meeting.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.